Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful and, honestly, a deeply moving short story by the Russian writer Maxim Gorky. It's called Beloved Boles, and it's this incredible story that starts with some pretty harsh judgment but ends with a profound lesson on what empathy really means. So, let's get into it. So, let me just start by asking you a question. Think about this. How far would you go to escape that crushing feeling of being completely and utterly alone? Would you, I don't know, bend reality a little? Maybe even create a whole new world for yourself just to cope? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through this. Because at its core, that's exactly what this story is about. It's the tale of a woman who, faced with this total lack of love in her life, just decided to invent it. This one sentence, it just captures the entire emotional heart of the story we're about to unpack. Okay, so our story is told through the eyes of a young student living in Moscow. He lives on the top floor of a building, and right across the hall from him lives this woman who, to put it mildly, kind of terrifies him. Her name is Teresa. And listen to how clear his feelings are right from the jump. He doesn't just dislike her or find her odd. The text says he's horrified by her. I mean, that's not a neutral observation, right? It's a really harsh, visceral judgment. And here's why he feels that way. Through his eyes, Teresa is the exact opposite of everything he thinks is, conventionally feminine or approachable. He doesn't see a person. He sees this big, loud caricature because she doesn't fit into his neat little box of what a woman should be. And because of that, he actively avoids her. For a while, that's pretty much their whole relationship. Him dodging her in the hallway, her occasionally booming up, "How do you do?" at him. But then, one day, something totally unexpected happens that changes everything and really gets the whole story rolling. One morning, Teresa knocks on his door, but she's different. The loud, intimidating woman he knows is just gone. Instead, she's standing there looking confused, timid, almost nervous, and she has a favor to ask. She needs him to write a letter for her. He agrees, probably just to get it over with and get her out of his room. But then she starts dictating the letter, and the words are, wow, they're just stunning. Coming from this woman he sees as so coarse and masculine, these words of tender, passionate love are completely jarring. And this is where his brain just short-circuits. He almost laughs out loud when this tall, muscular woman calls herself a sorrowing little dove. The image just doesn't compute for him at all. This contrast between the woman he thinks he sees and the words she's speaking, it creates this mystery that he just can't figure out. So, of course, this raises the big question. Who on earth is Boles? When the narrator asks, Teresa almost seems offended. She explains that Boles is her young man, and they've been together for 6 years. You can just feel the narrator's skepticism. A man like that, with her? In his mind, it's just impossible. So the narrator writes the letter. Teresa leaves, but his suspicion just keeps growing. He feels like something's not right here, like he's being made fun of. And that feeling is about to boil over into a direct confrontation. About a week goes by, and Teresa is back at his door. But this time, her request is even weirder. She doesn't want to write to Boles. She wants the student to write a letter from Boles to her. And for the narrator, that's it. That's the last straw. He thinks he's finally figured out her game. And this slide really shows you the total disconnect between them. From his point of view, it's simple. She's lying, playing some kind of game with him. But her reality is completely different. She's terrified and distraught, so much so that she can't even explain herself properly. They are living in two totally different emotional worlds. And so he just snaps. He accuses her of lying, of making a fool out of him, and basically tells her to get lost. It's this really cruel, angry outburst, and it's all fueled by his own pride and this complete misunderstanding. But it's this accusation that finally forces the truth to come out. After she runs out of his room, the narrator actually feels a little guilty. He follows her over to her room to apologize, and it's there, in that moment, that the heartbreaking truth behind Boles and the letters and all of her strange behavior is finally revealed. He asks her, why didn't she just mail the first letter he wrote for her? And her reply is so simple and so devastating. She couldn't send it to Boles, she tells him, because there's no such person. And right there, that's the core of the whole story. Everything Teresa has done, all of it, has been driven by this profound, soul-crushing loneliness. She wasn't trying to trick the narrator. She was just trying to build a shield against the pain of being completely alone in the world. This is her heartbreaking explanation. Boles isn't real, but by writing to him, by getting letters from him, she can pretend that he is. It's an illusion, yeah, a total fiction, but it's a fiction that makes her life bearable. It gives her someone to love and someone to feel loved by, even if none of it is real. Well, this confession changes absolutely everything for the narrator. In an instant, all of his judgment, all of his suspicion, it just melts away. And it's replaced by this deep, aching sense of shame and empathy. And he makes a choice right then that completely transforms their relationship. You can really map out his journey here. He goes from judging her on sight to suspecting her motives to finally understanding her pain. And that understanding leads him to the last and most crucial step, empathy. He makes this profound choice not to shatter her reality, but to actually join her in it. And so this little routine begins. Twice a week, he sits down and writes a letter to the imaginary Boles, and then he writes a loving reply from Boles back to Teresa. And in return for this small act of kindness, she mends his clothes. They end up creating this shared world, this small bubble of affection that brings her just immense comfort. The story does end on a pretty somber note. Years later, the narrator learns that Teresa was thrown in prison, and he assumes she's probably long dead. But the lesson he learned from her, that's something he carries with him forever. And it's a lesson for all of us, really. This is really the central message of the whole story. The idea that people who have suffered the most, who've known the most bitterness in life, they are the ones who crave sweetness and kindness with this incredible intensity. Teresa's life was bitter, so she invented the sweetest thing she could possibly imagine, someone who loved her. And Gorky leaves us with his final challenging thought. How often do we, just like the narrator did at the beginning, wrap ourselves up in our own sense of what's right and what's wrong? How often do we judge people from a distance, maybe based on a profile picture or a short video, and completely fail to understand the deep human hunger for connection that might be driving what they do? It's a question about empathy, and honestly, it feels more relevant today than ever.